When Meghan Markle agreed to appear on the Clarkson show, most expected a soft, uplifting segment filled with positivity and compassion. After all, both women are known for their resilience and advocacy, Kelly for her open-hearted authenticity, and Meghan for her fierce defense of privacy and dignity in the spotlight. The audience was primed for a wholesome exchange about motherhood, public life, and overcoming adversity. But what unfolded live on national television stunned viewers across the globe. Instead of a heartwarming chat, the two women found themselves entangled in a tense exchange that escalated from pointed questions to visible discomfort. At its peak, Meghan's voice cracked. Tears welled up in her eyes. The camera caught a deeply human moment that sent shockwaves through the media. Viewers were torn, some sympathizing with Meghan's vulnerability, others praising Kelly's boldness in asking tough, unscripted questions. One thing was clear: this wasn't just another talk show appearance, it was a collision of powerful voices. One lived raw and unforgettable. The episode began with applause and warmth. Kelly greeted Meghan with her usual charisma, the two sharing a polite hug and a few laughs about their shared experiences as public figures navigating motherhood in the public eye. The first 10 minutes were light, focusing on Meghan's philanthropic efforts, her children, and her new podcast series. But when Kelly shifted the tone of the conversation toward Meghan's role in the ongoing royal controversies, the air in the studio noticeably changed. "We've talked a lot about healing and stepping back from the noise," Kelly said, looking directly at her guest. "But do you ever worry that constantly speaking out just creates more noise?" Slightly caught off guard, she offered a composed answer about using her voice to break cycles and stand up for others who don't have platforms. Kelly nodded, but pressed on. "At what point does that advocacy start to feel like self-justification?" the audience murmured. Sensing a shift, Meghan's posture stiffened and her smile faded just a bit. Meghan attempted to clarify her perspective, talking about the pain of silence and the danger of being misunderstood. "It's not about justification," she said softly. "It's about truth, and truth isn't always neat." Kelly's expression remained firm. "But some people say your truth often feels rehearsed, that it's always polished, always controlled. Isn't vulnerability also about being messy?" The question hung in the air. Meghan's eyes flickered with emotion. "I've lived mess," she replied. "You just haven't seen all of it." The tension was palpable. The live audience had gone from clapping every few minutes to sitting in near silence, watching two women carefully choose their words in a conversational tug-of-war. Kelly, sensing the moment, tried to soften her tone. "I'm not trying to attack you," she said. "But when people cry foul while staying in the spotlight, some start to wonder, is it really about peace, or is it about the spotlight?" Meghan's composure trembled for the first time. She took a deep breath, her voice barely above a whisper. "You have no idea what peace costs when the world's rooting for your pain." At that point, the emotional weight in the room became overwhelming. Meghan's voice cracked, her lips quivered, and tears formed in her eyes. The camera, without warning, cut to a tight shot of her face, capturing the moment in devastating clarity. The image of a duchess, so often poised and polished, now visibly hurting in real time, stunned viewers. Kelly paused, visibly rattled. Herself. "I didn't mean to upset you," she said, reaching out instinctively. Meghan wiped her eye with the edge of her sleeve and smiled faintly. "No, it's okay. It's just, sometimes it feels like no matter how much you explain yourself, people only hear what they want." Kelly nodded slowly, visibly moved but still firm. "That's fair. But don't you think sometimes the public's fatigue isn't personal, it's just cumulative?" Ing stared at her for a moment, then looked away. "I don't expect the world to carry my story," she said. "Just wish they'd stop dragging it behind them like a weapon." The silence that followed felt eternal. Even the band stayed quiet. Producers were reportedly panicking backstage, unsure whether to cut to commercial or ride the moment out. Eventually, Kelly spoke again. "You've been through hell, I respect that," she said. "But when you put your story out again and again, do you ever worry you're reopening your own wounds and making it harder to move on?" Meghan gave a long, tired sigh. "Of course I do. But silence didn't protect me. It nearly broke me. She looked straight into the camera. If people think I talk too much, maybe they should ask why they're still listening so hard. The statement triggered a wave of applause from a portion of the audience, while others remained tense. Kelly offered a respectful nod, but her earlier questions had clearly left an impact. The rest of the interview moved along with more caution. They discussed Meghan's recent charity initiatives, her work with young girls, and motherhood. The damage or the breakthrough, depending on who you ask, had already happened. It was all live. Asterisk, when the episode ended, the internet exploded. Twitter flooded with clips of Meghan's emotional moments, spliced with debate, praise, and criticism. Hashtags like hashtag Meghan on Kelly, hashtag Kelly vs Meghan, and hashtag live TV tears started trending globally. Opinion was split right down the middle. Some called Kelly cruel, accusing her of blindsiding Meghan under the guise of honesty. Others hailed Kelly for being the only host brave enough to challenge what they saw as Meghan's curated narrative. What everyone agreed on was that it was one of the rawest, most human moments daytime TV had delivered in years. Media outlets, from the New York Times to BuzzFeed, ran headlines like Meghan Markle breaks down on live TV and Kelly Clarkson sparks royal meltdown. Analysts, commentators, and cultural critics all weighed in. Some defended Meghan's right to her pain. Others questioned whether constant public appearances made her a participant in the very system she claimed to escape. Asterisk Kelly, for her part, remained composed. In a follow-up statement, she said, "My job is to ask real questions. I admire Meghan and what she's survived. But interviews aren't therapy sessions. They're conversations, sometimes tough ones." Her statement drew both admiration and ire. Meanwhile, Meghan's camp declined formal interviews, but released a brief message. Through her foundation, Meghan appreciates the opportunity to speak honestly, even when it's hard. Healing is never linear. Behind the scenes, however, sources claimed Meghan was shaken. An insider said she expected a warm, supportive platform. She didn't expect to cry on camera. But even her critics acknowledged that her reaction was deeply authentic. Whatever the motivations, the moment resonated far beyond studio lights. It tapped into something bigger, a clash of vulnerability, expectation, and the burden of constantly having to explain yourself in a world that rarely listens with kindness. Asterisk, in the days that followed, the clip became a cultural touchstone. TikTok creators shared reactions and breakdowns of the moment. Psychologists wrote op-eds about the emotional labor of public vulnerability. Support groups and forums lit up with conversations from people, especially women, who related to Meghan's words about being misunderstood, labeled, and perpetually criticized for defending themselves. A viral post read, "You don't have to like Meghan to see her pain. That was real, and it was brave." Others, however, argued that public figures like Meghan shouldn't expect comfort in every media appearance. One tweet said, "You don't get to be the voice of your generation and not be questioned. That's the cost of the mic." Even so, the image of Meghan's tear-streaked face, juxtaposed with Kelly's firm but empathetic posture, became the visual symbol of a broader cultural conversation, one about empathy, expectations, and what it means to tell your truth in front of millions. Asterisk, producers at the Kelly Clarkson show defended the segment's authenticity, noting that no questions were provided in advance, and Meghan had been informed the conversation could go deep. But the conversation behind the scenes had already shifted to future damage control. Other celebrities were reportedly cautious about upcoming bookings. "If Meghan cries on your show, anyone can," one insider joked darkly, however, remained unshaken. "I ask the questions that matter," she told Variety, "and I do it with heart." But even she admitted privately that the moment had affected her. It didn't want to hurt her. She was overheard saying, "I just wanted the truth, not the version that's been packaged and posted 100 times. Meghan, meanwhile, took a brief break from the spotlight, quietly canceling a few scheduled appearances. But the narrative had already taken a life of its own. Her pain had spoken louder than any interview answer could, and the world was still listening.